And then what it really becomes then is honing in on what Joanne has as a skill set is unique. How does it make those individual people better based on what they're doing, what their goals are? How do you take a plan of care that Joanne's putting together, communicate it to those individuals, and then have it translated into sort of the network that they become? So you're turning these people into your own little influencers.
Hey, what's up, everybody? And welcome to Masters in Fitness Business Podcast, where you get to stand on the shoulders of giants. And today I'm bringing you two giants from the world of physical therapy. We have Joanne Moxa and Sam. How do you say your last name, Sam? Because I'm going to botch it.
Yusuf. Sam Yusuf.
Sam Yusuf. Sam Yusuf and Joanne Moxa. And I met these two, maybe 3-4 years ago?
At least, yeah.
And we've been working with them. Catalyst has been working with them for the last 4 years. We have nothing but good things to say about them. They're excellent at what they do, which is why we're glad to have them as part of one of our partners as far as a physical therapist goes. And we were able to establish a working relationship with them. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because I know Joanne and Sam have built almost their entire business on business-to-business referrals and creating a referral network. So we're going to talk about that today, what that looks like, what's been successful for them, and also what they look for in a trainer/training studio when they're looking to partner up with somebody. So guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
And then Joanne and Sam. Joanne, we'll have you go first. You want to, because I know if I read your resume, both of you guys' resume is so extensive that I know I'm going to screw it up. So I'm going to have you guys introduce yourself and kind of give us your background, your qualifications. So Joanne, you want to go first?
Sure. I am obviously a physical therapist. I won't say how many years, but I think I graduated a couple years ago. It's been like 20 some odd years. So I've been doing this a long time. Have a strong specialization in orthopedics. I'm a women's health specialist. I am a C2 Schroff therapist, certified therapist for scoliosis treatment. I'm a certified in McKenzie and taping and lots of different other courses. I started my career training in Canada and then moved to the United States and worked in Broadway shows for 13 years doing dancers and performers. And then slowly migrated back to the Midwest, which I love, in St. Louis. When first came to St. Louis, I basically worked with another company, and then with Sam's help, we kind of developed into our own company now.
Yeah, Boutique Physio.
Correct.
Yep. Yeah. Thanks, Joanne.
So I am not a physical therapist. My name is Sam Yusuf, but I've had the pleasure of working with, obviously with Joanne for the last number of years, and a lot of physical therapists. My role is really along the lines of business development and marketing, and to the extent of actually building clinics from the ground up and building a referral network source. And a lot of it is tied into the messaging aspect of what is unique about the practice and who can benefit from that practice, and looking at community business partners to partner up with to get your messaging out. So, and my role with Joanne, her and I have been partners in this practice in St. Louis for the last couple of years. I also run a practice in the Chicagoland area, more of an integrative health practice with physical therapy, chiropractic care, and nutritional counseling. And it's based on the same premise. A lot of the things that Joanne and I do in St. Louis, we bring back to the marketplace here in the Chicagoland market, and it resonates pretty much the same way.
Great. And you guys have been really successful. I know with the first business venture you had in St. Louis, you grew it and it became quite successful. And then now 2 years into Boutique Physio, and you guys are experiencing a lot of success. So let's get right into it. So was that the plan from the very beginning, was to build a network or reach out into the community and build your business that way? Or what was your thinking when you opened up your spot here in St. Louis?
So I could just start briefly, just, Joanne and I had met when the company that we worked for decided to open up a practice. And that really was based on Joanne being the type of therapist that she was. And, we sort of, look at her, she's a magnet in the sense that she attracts clientele based on her practice. And she had left Chicago and moved to St. Louis. And the company decided, hey, let's open up a practice in St. Louis. The problem becomes, in Chicago, you already have foundational pieces. You already have a network built. And so you're looking to start a practice from the ground up. And their philosophy was, oh, we can do what we did in Chicago, and we can start, just trying to contact doctors and people in the area and let them know about us. And the problem becomes is you're landing in a new area where there are already existing providers doing, based on a piece of paper or by definition, the same thing you do. So what's the difference in your practice that's going to attract these people to refer to you? And that's really kind of when Joanne and I put our heads together, because initially that was not going to work in a new marketplace. And based on those initial discussions, it was about identifying what Joanne does best, what is unique to her practice philosophy, and who do we go to tell that story to. And ideally what it was is literally starting with one patient. And so she already had an existing patient that she was seeing that had some
Literally
very
one patient. I'm telling you, Jim, when I met Sam, I had zero interest in opening up my own clinic. I always thought I wanted the independence and I wanted the lifestyle because it's kind of my control mind and I like to be in control of what I'm doing. But I kept on saying for years, I absolutely wanted nothing to do with it. I was always trying to search for the perfect environment to work that I could just be me and treat the way I wanted to treat. And it became harder and harder and harder to find that place. So when I met Sam, I literally didn't have any interest in it. And so he grew me into the opportunity, and we kind of got forced into the opportunity in an odd way. But when I realized when I first met him that he had something that I really needed to make what I do best come out and shine. And I knew I didn't have the talent and the knowledge and the time to look into the business aspect of it. And so I kept on telling him, okay, just wind me up, face me in the right direction, and tell me what you want me to say. I knew what I had to do from a PT perspective, and PTs know how to be PTs, but they don't know how to do the business aspect of it. So he is absolutely, the brains behind all that. And I just listened to him, and he gave me really great advice. And we just kind of brought the two talents together literally with one patient that I had. When I moved in, I was building a new home, and I had a patient of mine who I was doing my closets, and she had her daughter, and she had needed PT, and she's like, I need a really good PT. And we were talking, she goes, that's the kind of PT I want. And I said, I'll see her. And I basically treated in her house, and that's how it started.
Yeah. And I like that story because it parallels trainers, a lot of trainers. I know it parallels my story. I didn't want to open a business. I didn't want to open Catalyst, but like you said, it became harder and harder to find that ideal environment. So when it became hard enough, I just decided to try to create it for myself. But to your point, I didn't know anything about business. I knew how to be a trainer, but I didn't know anything about business. So I like that story because it parallels a lot of trainers' stories. So you started with one client, and then what happened?
So it turns out, when you're trying, it's not like you're going to obviously try to build a schedule or a certain number of patients by having one client. So it becomes, who does that client know? What is unique about what you're doing? And then with this particular client, her daughter was being treated for, and obviously we can't go into too much detail, but I can tell you she was being treated for cancer. And, one of the things we do is we also integrate ourselves within the community. And that's always, you want to be part of the community, you get to know your community, you donate to your community, you support your community, because it always comes back tenfold. And that's always a philosophy I've always had in any business venture I was in. And this is something that, Joanne and I have seen to be very valuable. And so we connected with the patient's parents, or with the patient's mother, where she was being treated at. And we said it was a goal that we wanted to do, is support, that particular organization. At the same time, Joanne had another patient, very similar situation. Where does that patient, what's unique to that patient? Who does she see? Who's her doctor, et cetera? There was another patient, let's say, she's at a yoga studio, or she's taking a spin class, or someone's working at a particular gym. And then where it really becomes then is honing in on what Joanne has as a skill set is unique. How does it make those individual people better based on what they're doing, what their goals are? How do you take a plan of care that Joanne's putting together, communicate it to those individuals, and then have it translated into sort of the network that they become? So you're turning these people into your own little influencers by openly communicating them in great detail as to what's being done and why they're benefiting from this relationship with Joanne. And it becomes very similar.
That's what I had the most difficulty with. I knew I could do the craft, and I knew how to get people better, and I knew what to do when I was in my bubble, but I didn't know how to really express it to other people outside of my little one-on-one room with that patient. And so Sam was really good at showing me how to present it to make them understand and kind of get the key points. And that's literally why I say it was like, okay, wind me up, tell me the key things I need to talk about, because I could talk about those till I'm blue in my face, and then point me in the direction and, let me go. And so he would constantly, we'd go into meetings and he'd be like, okay, this is what you need to remember. Remember, you do this really well. Remember this. And, I was like the little wind up doll.
So, it always sort of became, it's the same, she's doing the same thing, but you're using different words to describe it depending on who your audience is. So if you're working with a yoga instructor, it's still the same type of philosophy and approach from a mechanical standpoint and from a treatment standpoint. But Joanne also has a long, yoga history herself. She's been practicing 20 years, et cetera. And so it's about merging the two and then speaking the language of that individual that you're trying to connect to. And that was one of our largest referral sources initially, was, sort of the yoga community, because it's something that Joanne did on the weekends. But then it became start having conversations with those yoga instructors about what you do and how you can work with them to help them as coaches, to help them as instructors.
Okay, then Samuel, explain to me how you got me into a CrossFit environment and taught me how to talk to CrossFitters that were like, a couple 100 pounds lifting weights that I didn't really agree with the technique at times. And somehow that just kind of worked out as well.
That was always our biggest conflict, because it was, PTs, and not all PTs, but let's just say from Joanne's perspective, the idea of doing CrossFit is not the most, it's not the best way to train. However, as I was telling
her, it's a great referral source for client stuff.
It was awesome.
So it really became, rather than being judgmental, it's how do you help them improve what they're trying to do. And so we talk about mobility, strength, speed, endurance, et cetera. So these are all things that you can help them improve on. So really became, so what we did is, we met with a local CrossFit place. We talked to the ownership, and what we said, hey, this is what our approach is. This is what we can help you with. And, typically we're always afraid that there's going to be, not necessarily controversial, but, sort of an antagonistic type relationship, is that, hey, I'm the coach and trainer. You can't tell me what to do. And what we needed to let them know is, we don't want to tell you what you do, is we want to help you improve how you're communicating to your clientele to make them better at what they're doing.
I think that's the biggest thing. I think we came in here and there's this unwritten rule between personal trainers and health practitioners in physical therapy that we're telling our clients to not do certain things. And for the vast majority of physical therapists out there, I hate to tell you, they often tell their clients, don't do this, and you're going to be seen by me. Don't do this, don't do this, don't go to this exercise, don't do this exercise, don't go to this trainer for a while. Take a little break because I'm treating you. Literally, I had the conversation with somebody this morning. What do I not do? I literally, when I see my patients, I'm like, you already know what not to do because your pain will tell you, do whatever you want to do. They keep on asking me, what do I do? Whatever you want to do, because I need that information. I desperately need that information so they can come back to me and I can say, okay, let's make it better. Because if they don't have that knowledge base of knowing what makes them sore, I can't get them better faster. So breaking the barrier of not telling the trainers to know that I'm not telling them to stop exercising, okay? I want them to exercise. I really, really want them to exercise because it's useful information for them. For me, it's important for them, but I was having more of a problem getting my trainers to, okay, you have shoulder problems, well, let's not do any shoulder exercises. Okay, because we have no ability to know what's changing. I could treat you for 6 weeks if you don't experiment with it. How would you know what's different?
Yeah. And that's a good point. I mean, because I know that's one thing that I was very wary of, is that I would refer, because I've had that happen, that exact same scenario where I've referred out to a physical therapist or chiro, and they say, well, stop training. Well, guess what? I'm not going to refer any more clients to that PT. You know, I would rather, much rather have kind of a back and forth where we're communicating, he's got this going on, so don't maybe shy away from this, or be careful with this, or vice versa, so that they can continue to see you and me, and continue to train. So that's the goal, is to not avoid training, but to train smartly in a collaborative manner.
So that brings up kind of two hurdles that we needed to get over when we were starting out. One of them is how do people understand or get to know what we do? And, you know, back then, you know, the way I had wanted to do it is, let's get people to meet Joanne and do these complimentary assessments. Let them spend a few minutes with her, have her review what they're doing from a mechanical standpoint. She's not talking about, we always would laugh at that. It's, you know, how to do a clean and jerk, or how to do a press, or
I would ask him what
exactly, or kettlebell swings, or anything of that nature, or a lunge. It's like, don't worry about the words used to describe, just focus on the movement itself. And so that's what really became. And then you're communicating with that individual based on the movement, and you begin to understand what that movement is supposed to look like. And then you're able to communicate with them how you can improve it, how you can break it down incrementally, step by step. So we were doing these complementary screens. The other point that you had brought up, Jim, in this communication side, is that, you know, these people are with their physical therapist once, maybe twice a week, getting treated. And if they want to continue to exercise, it's actually in our collective best interest to have them continue to move, continue to exercise. And so that allows the therapist to have an open communication with their trainer and or coach to detail what is going on. And sort of, as you said, you know, the key word is to collaborate and to help each other out, so that you can continue, you know, maybe you can focus on another body part, you know, maybe it's upper body as opposed to lower body. And there's certain still things, obviously they're walking and they're moving. So there's obviously certain exercises that you can continue to introduce for them to do lower body work if that's where the injury occurs. So it becomes more mobility based than strength based. So those are all important aspects. None of it happens unless you're communicating.
I like that. And I agree with you on that. And I think kind of crafting or curating your message according to wherever you're going, be it a CrossFit gym or a yoga studio, or, you know, some kind of athletic training place. But the thing that you mentioned was, one, getting in front of these people, and two, getting involved in the community. For me, I find the hardest thing is getting in the door, getting in front of those people to even start to communicate with them and curate your language to them. So how did you guys, what did you find worked at getting you in front of people?
That was super easy, Jim, because I just used my patients. My patients did it for me, to be very honest with you.
Okay.
So if I had a patient that had a trainer, and, you know, they have trainers, they have more than one, they have, you know, the occasional one, they have a massage therapist, they have you know, you name it, they have some body worker practitioner. I would use whoever and whomever they had. And with, you know, Sam's guidance, he's like, we would always, you know,
Craft
set
that
up.
letter.
That.
Craft that letter. We literally, every conversation was crafted.
Oh yeah, he's my ghostwriter. I don't know I don't own any of that. But basically just starting the communication of like, hey, seeing your patients, love to, you know, just meet and just keep it as minimal as that I wasn't trying to tell them not to do anything. I wasn't trying to step on their toes. I really just wanted to meet them. You know what's the reason I wanted to meet them? I really wanted to know, A, how smart they were, and B, whether they were passionate about what they do. And whether, because you know, my common denominator is I don't like patients to be in pain. I just find it's unacceptable for a 30-year-old to have pain. Okay. And it's one thing to have a trauma and a physiological change in your body to be able to state you have pain from a reason and an injury and the bone is dysfunctional and you had a major injury, but that's not the vast majority of pain out there. The vast majority of pain is just, you know, so many different things outside of that. You know, waking up with stiffness and you're 35 years old and have no reason, really pinpoint reason to be in that way. And to me, I'm like a hyper analyzer and I really want to know why. And I really want them to get better, period. So I was always looking for that common denominator in other people that I met. So I attract myself to those people like yourself that really want people to be better and to feel better, and they're vested in it. And I like my patients to be vested too, because they get better faster and they are my referral sources. I see every single patient, thanks to Sam, that walk in my door, as they're just as important to me as a doctor who refers me a patient.
I mean, we literally, the first year in business, we didn't have any direct doctor referrals.
No, they wouldn't see us. They wouldn't even talk to
We're
us.
talking about we could not get into the door because they already had established groups that they were working with. And so what we did is just work with our patients. And eventually, it was probably the second year till we started to break in with certain, you know, potential orthopedic doctors.
And then patients would tell their doctors, and then doctors would phone us. That's literally how I got into doctors. They would be like, I would have a patient and they would be like, I feel really good. I'm like, you know what? Do me a favor. Don't do anything. Just tell your doctor that you feel good, that you come here, and that you see us. That's it. Just do that for me. And it just became this, you know, vicious circle. And patients were so, they went out of their way to help us, like literally out of their way. Like, because it seemed like such a simple thing for them to do, but it meant so much to us for them to do it. And so initially, hey, doctors didn't want anything to do with us. They were like, whatever, you're just another PT. That's it. And we haven't.
Yeah, and you got to crack that referral network of theirs too. Yeah, but I like that, using the patients, because that's actually brilliant. Like when you said it was easy, but it just takes time. I mean, it's very successful and it works, but it takes time.
The hardest part was Sam would always say, we'll ask them to do it. And as a PT, and you can probably join in on this, is that I felt uncomfortable asking them. I felt like I was like asking them for money. Okay.
Yes.
I'm like, no, I didn't do that. Like,
you're
not asking them for doing anything major. You're just asking them to, like, reviews. For example, reviews. The first time I did a review that I asked somebody to do a Yelp review on me, I'm like, you're crazy. I don't really care if they write a Yelp review. What does it really matter? And he kept on harping me. And, you know, he prides himself. I have the most Yelp reviews in St. Louis PT practice, or who knows, maybe all over the place. And he was so mad because when we changed businesses from the other ownership to mine, that we were losing ownership of our Yelp reviews because now Yelp owned them. And he's like, all the work we did on that. I'm like, they're still there. And he's like, it's not the same. I'm like, so, you know, they were so valuable to us. Okay. And he would say, just ask them to do it. Well, I feel uncomfortable. And then the new PTs would come on and they'd be like, I'd be saying, ask them. you're uncomfortable for what? It was such a simple thing. And I'm telling you, not one person would ever say no to me. Not one person. And I don't know if you've read some of them. Some of them are like 5, 6 paragraphs long, and they get very personal. And so it was hugely valuable to us to this day.
Yeah, and I think that's part of that mindset shift that you have to make, going from a technician to an owner, right? Because technician, you're thinking, I'm providing these people a service, I don't want to inconvenience them. When I ask them for a review or to talk to their doctor or their friends, it feels kind of salesy and makes me feel kind of icky.
Totally.
But as an owner, you have to do that, not only for yourself and for your clients, but for your other staff as well, so that they can build the business and provide, a livelihood for everybody.
Yeah, once I explained to the patients what I wanted it for, in sense of building the business and making sure that people knew what we could provide that was so different than other people, they were like, tell me what to do, sign me up. And some of them be like on their way out the door already writing the review before they even left the building, because they were just, when you have this passion associated with what you do, they want to help you. They truly, and unfortunately for me, St. Louis people are more so in that camp. I cannot tell you how many people in St. Louis are just really supportive. Once you kind of feel like, once there's a passion for where they were always hugely supported, more than I've ever had in other areas that I've lived.
Yeah, I like that. And then I know you were talking about earlier, kind of what you look for, kind of like-minded people that kind of get attracted to you. Can you tell us a little bit, or tell the listeners a little bit more about what you look for when you're talking to a trainer specifically, or a training studio, whether it be personal training, yoga, Pilates, whatever it is, when you're talking about some kind of health and fitness studio, what you're looking for when you're trying to establish a relationship with them?
I think the biggest thing from a trainer or exercise instructor, etc., that I really look for, besides, it's not like I'm looking at their resume and I'm looking at their background and what they're trained in, because you don't really need that to be able to correlate to the person what they have as a knowledge base. Because I probably have rarely ever looked at where their education baseline is in sense of exercise, because I can tell by the product, but maybe that's just experience. Sam calls it my gut, but it's kind of that, it's so hard to put your finger on, but it's really having that understanding that they understand somewhat of what I am trying to state when I do have a conversation regarding if I'm talking to them about my patients, I want to feel like I have a sense of their understanding some of what I'm saying regarding what I'm trying to do with my patients. If I can't have a conversation about a patient and it's just me talking generally about exercise, you can usually tell how they present themselves with, the simplest thing, how to do a squat. You could take the squat and you can just take that one exercise, and their idea of that way to be in a position for a squat and the posture of it, the little bit of cueing you do with it can be so telltale. So I didn't even have to necessarily talk to some of these people. I can see based on the product of what I saw to be able to tell me. For example, we went into a particular establishment, and obviously won't say the name, and having a conversation with the person who owned the place, and he's talking to the guy, I'm watching around me, and I'm watching not just what the clients are doing, because I know clients do things wrongly, even though if they're told not to, but I'm more interested in seeing the interaction between the trainer and the clients in sense of the words used, okay, and what they're willing to pay attention to correct. That really sums it up for me. That was way more important. And I can tell more by that than having a conversation with the trainer. And
Well,
so we would walk out of the meeting and I'd be like, oh my God, did you see da 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 da? I don't like this. And I don't, you know, I would say like, I don't think they know what they're doing here. And I don't think they want to do anything. And I'd give them compliments where they had it. And he's like, he would tell me about the meeting he had with the guy.
well, because when we're having that conversation is you're comparing the two, because the one person's talking about how the program is, how they're training, how amazing they are. And you have a completely different perspective because you're not watching and seeing that in action. And so, you know, sort of the things that when I look at organizations, and then Joanne and I have these conversations, you know, I do look at resumes to a certain extent, but I also look at how they're programming their training with their clients and how they communicate that, you know, do they have a plan? Does it contain progression? What are they doing what does that program look like? What does it include? Are they meeting the client and or patient goals that have been stated? And so, you know, Joanne, when you're talking to your patients and they're telling you about where they're training, you're picking up on that information and what they're being told, and you draw a certain conclusion. You know, and Jim, you know, one of the things when we first met that was always part of our initial conversations is that you're creating individualized programs based on your clients and their client goals. It's not something you're slapping up on the board, and that it's almost like a individualized group fitness class where people are doing the same thing. They're just doing it on their own.
Right.
You know,
With
so that becomes,
standard regressions and progressions. Yeah.
and so those become very important. Or somebody has a log book. Hey, you know what? I bench pressed 150 pounds today, and 2 weeks from now I bench press 175 pounds. So I'm progressing. That's that doesn't mean anything from this. You may be thinking you're getting stronger, but you're going to hit that plateau to a certain extent. You're not going to be able to push through that plateau without qualified quality training,
and movement. Yeah.
So all of those factors become very, very important. And that I'm having this conversation, I'm thinking about the athletes we see in our facility in Chicago, as most of them hit those walls. That becomes the issue. They'll continue to go training 2-3 times a week with their trainers, but they're not getting any stronger, and they can't figure out why. And so we then get into these observational conversations with the trainers, and it really becomes you're not progressing because you're not getting them in a certain position to allow their bodies to progress. They're doing the same movement over and over again.
So a lot of
performance barriers.
A lot of exercisers, and you can attest to this because I see it hourly, they're not taught how to feel when they do an exercise. They're taught to do the exercise, and they're taught somewhat of the position, but they often can't mimic the position sometimes when you're not there, because they don't problem solve it. And they don't know, this is the sensation you should feel when you're in this position right now, before you even start the movement, before you even lift the weight. Do you feel this? This is where you should feel a little bit of your tension and workload right here. Okay. Yeah. Feel it. Okay. Now you're ready to do the action, because you're already up against the wall in the wrong direction if you don't. So I'm constantly teaching my patients to feel a sensation, because you're not going to have me with you when you go to the gym, or when you're going in your car and you're waking up in the morning and you walk into the bathroom. So you need to know what normal feels like, because they have a complete disassociation of what normal. And in the gym, it's even more so necessary. Okay. And so building this sense of what you should feel like, not just what you can look like, because you don't have gyms in your environment, mirrors in your environment, right? A lot of places don't.
Right.
Yoga studios, thankfully, we do. I like yours. Yeah, I like mirrors, but some people don't. Mm-hmm. And so you have to know what it feels like inside your system. And the strength what I've noticed over the years, because I hyper-analyze, and I'm fortunate that I can analyze my patients, there's a strong disconnect to stabilization at the spine. Like, they don't have this feeling that the multifidus muscle is like doing this and contracting their spine to stabilize them. and they don't know what it feels like. They don't know how to produce it. And it is the most important thing to make a successful exercise and make you feel connected, to make progression happen in gyms and athletes and such. That's what athletes have. That's why athletes look like they just float. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And they make it look so easy. They're just really spinally connected to their movement patterns.
Yeah, that kinetic awareness.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of really making them know what this feels like, what sensation feels like, because they really have a strong disassociation to that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Creating and educating them on that kinetic awareness.
Yeah.
Yeah, and where they should feel it. I like that. You know, because I experienced that early on, many moons ago, another lifetime ago, when I was doing bodybuilding. I remember practicing my poses, and I would always do it in front of the mirror. And then when I would get on stage, everybody would tell me, you hit all your poses wrong. I'm like, what do you mean I hit them wrong? I've been practicing them. Well, I've been practicing in front of the mirror, and I didn't know how they felt to hit it correctly, right? So then I would start videotaping and developing that kinetic awareness, and it's the same thing. You know, you have to know what it feels like kinetically to do it correctly. And then you don't have to rely on the mirror. I like that a lot.
And, you know, that's a constant in our world. The constant is, you know, building this neuromuscular awareness. And I always tell my patients, I'm really training your brain. I'm map braining you. That's all I'm doing is map braining you. Because, well, why did I get this way? You know, life, time, you know, call it age, I call it time. It's just, you know, a bump in the road. I don't know. It could be all of the above. It doesn't really matter at this point. You don't have it today. So we got to build it back in. And some of it is quick and some of it is longer. But you won't continuously retain the product if you don't map brain them. And you won't map brain them unless you get that neuromuscular connection, making them feel a sensation. And so, you know, in our practice, because it's self-pay, pain is not the common denominator. They're there, meaning they come because they're in pain, but I don't need pain to treat because I'm not controlled by the insurance to treat them. In an insurance world, you have to have some justification to be able to use insurance. So I got to have pain. So stiffness, tightness, tension, can't do pigeon pose, doesn't work in the insurance world, right? So it does work in my world. And to me, those are just as important as pain. So when they're, hey, I'm so tight in my hip and I constantly stretch it, that's to me a yellow flag right there.
Yeah, I like that. So I always wrap up with 3 questions, and I'll lob these questions to both of you. And it's my favorite part of the show because I think it's where we get the best answers, because we get to pull back the curtain a little bit. So my first question is, what has been your most successful failure? And by that, I mean, at the time, it seemed like a devastating loss that you weren't going to be able to recover from, but you were able to take life lessons from that propelled you to greater success down the road. I can see Joanne already has her answer. All right, go.
Going from the old clinic I was in to starting the new business, hands down, without a doubt, 110%.
Yeah.
So it was like you're taking my left arm away, and I had no idea what to do. There was so much going on for decision-making processes. And obviously Sam was walking me through it, and he was assisting me at more levels, but I kept on asking him, like,
was more pushing you.
What should I do? And he would never answer the question, and I still kick him in the ass for it now. I asked him, like, what would you have done if I would have I did the wrong thing, or I did the opposite of what I did? Well, you would have never done that. That's all he tells me.
Well, you know, part of the problem is you're trying to make a life decision, and I was always confident that it was the correct decision. She just needed to take, you know, sort of have the confidence in herself to walk that path, so to speak. And it's difficult, you know, when you're going from working for an organization, having some independence, and you think it's the ideal situation, to completely going on your own. And, you know, obviously when you started your business, the same way, you're taking that leap of faith, and that's, you know, what entrepreneurs do. But you got to have the right people with you, otherwise it does not work. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Completely
So
agree.
what were some of the lessons you took from that propelled you to greater success?
Well, I think the autonomy helped a great deal. And, Jim, obviously we owe a lot to you for allowing us to transition into your
Oh my
space.
God, Jim, 2 years anniversary, I was sitting in your place
Yeah.
downstairs, schlepping my butt off from 7 o'clock to 7 o'clock at night, 7 a.m. to 7 a.m. And you were a trooper. Remember that I walked into your office and I said, hey, I need a sofa to sleep on. I got kicked out of my place. And you're like, done, I'm here. So
Yeah.
grateful to you. I'm just so grateful for the people around me and that's why, we try to support each other. But listen, yeah, I wouldn't be here for lots of people involved.
Well, part of that was that I was in Sam's camp, is that I knew what kind of physical therapist you were, and I really believed in you and believed in what you were doing. And I knew that if you went on your own, that you would be uber successful. And I know it was hard for you to leave everything that your baby, right?
Yeah.
You had built that from one patient to however many patients you had when you left. So that's like it's like giving up your child, and then starting from scratch. So,
and
but
nobody would follow me too on top of it.
yeah, but I imagine a bulk of them did, and I just knew that you would be successful. I knew that it was scary, but I knew you would be successful because you're a great PT and you're a great person.
Thank you.
All right. And then my next question is, since you've been involved in the fitness industry, and that goes way back for both of you guys, what has been the biggest surprise other than COVID? Because nobody saw that coming. What has been the biggest surprise that you've had to deal with that you did not see coming?
Oh my gosh, Sam, you go.
Oh.
I'm trying to think. Biggest surprise.
I'm going to tell you that the
you had
resource,
to deal
to
with?
be honest with you, because, in the Chicago area, I also am vice president of the local Chamber of Commerce. And so I get the opportunity to work with a lot of local businesses. And, we held these seminars for fitness centers and gyms. And we, I could say the same about the beauty industry as well, and or the restaurants. But, gyms in particular, the resourcefulness that I've seen come out from some of these business owners is amazing. I mean, all of them having to shift to virtual models and trying to connect for the first few months, then having to transition back into doing, limited space, social distancing, and, small groups.
Outdoor training.
And outdoor training is the other one perspective. And now obviously now that things, we have mitigation plans, obviously, that are going on in Missouri, or St. Louis County, here in Chicago and in most of Illinois, we have mitigation plans going on too. So everybody now in the fitness industry is taking a step back. And so, the new innovation is, hey, we're going to bring equipment to your house. We're going to let you come to the gym and pick up a few pieces you can rent for us and continue working on at home. And so it didn't necessarily become the idea of I got to get new clients, is I have to maintain and support who I currently have right now. And what's the best way to do that? And then, once you've sort of felt like a little bit secure, is how do I expand and where am I going to get potentially these new clients from? And, that conversation, when I talk to some of the people up here, is like going to the big boxes that they've gone from, 1,000 people a week, or, they have 5,000 clients and they're down to seeing maybe 50 people a day as opposed to 500 people a day. Well, that leaves a lot of people out there not doing anything, looking for alternative venues. And so that gives you the opportunity to create that safe environment that you can communicate. So somebody else's loss is your potential gain, at least for the smaller fitness places. But these current limitations, like I said, it's about trying to stay alive, for the next few, 3, 6, 12 months, however long it's going to be. And being adaptable, that's really what surprised me. I had thought that some of these places would fail fairly quickly just because clients weren't coming, but they pivoted. They used some very innovative techniques, were out there doing what they needed to do to communicate what they needed to do with their clients to keep them on board.
I think my biggest surprise outside of COVID, and not even anything related to COVID, is over the years, I've been a PT for 20 some years. And over the last 5 years, especially in St. Louis, people ask me sometimes if I'm a PT. And I find that really shocking and surprising, not because they don't think I am a PT, but because I practice so differently than their typical PT that they literally will have conversations with me and ask me if I'm a PT.
Yeah.
Which is completely heartbreaking and shocking
Mm-hmm.
and concerning and happy, sad all at the same time.
I want to change my answer because I get that same question as
Oh
Joanne.
yeah, they ask him if he's a PT. They want Sam to treat him.
Yeah, I've actually had scripts written to my name.
I know, I believe.
They're referring to, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not the PT. We just had a conversation. That's it.
I always tell my patients, he's the business manager, he's the clinic manager, he's smart as a PT, he can't physically treat you. He used to clean the toilets, but now I took him off.
A jack of all trades.
That's the beauty of a small business. You can understand that, Jim. I'm sure you've done the toilets many times.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's no job that's that you won't have to do at some point.
Exactly.
And I can attest to your PT style, because that's the reason I started referring people to you, is that you go to a lot of PTs and they kind of kick out these exercises and they say, here, do these 3 exercises, 3 sets of 10 each, do that 3 times a day. And nobody ever does it. And a lot of times the PT doesn't even watch you do it, but when you go to you, it's hands-on, you're watching, coaching, cueing, instructing, educating. And so that's what I really liked. And so that's why I referred people to
The other thing is I literally use probably 3 to 6 exercises. That's literally what I use. And I always tell my patients, I'm not going to exercise you. I have no desire to exercise you. That's a personal trainer's job. That is whoever you're working with, instructor. I'm not an exerciser. I can tell you when it's wrong or right. And I can tell you if you want a little loose routine, but I literally use an inventory of 3 to 6 exercises. And I think that's where trainers get a little bit, they overthink it when they think that they need to make an exercise more difficult by, hey, well, let's do a squat with one leg on your tiptoes with a weight standing on a pillow. Okay.
On a BOSU.
But you don't need to. All you have to do is, like yesterday, I had a patient and I haven't seen her for a while because she had a procedure. And she's like, I'm kind of getting bored with my little 10-minute routine I give her, okay, at the most that she does. And I'm like, well, let's just look at it. So all we did was make it more specific. Like, I'm anal retentive about it. And she's like, oh, it's so awesome because you didn't add any exercises. I just know how to do it better. I'm like, that's what matters.
Right. That's the progression.
And one of the points I want to bring up, one of the bigger differences is from our PT philosophy and perspective, there's that, you could tell somebody what to do. You could show them what they can do. You can watch them what they're doing, but until you actually put their hands on and kind of feel exactly what's going on in a very specific sequence, none of it really works. This is why I believe, Joanne's practice is effective as it is, because she's able to, put her hands on people and determine, based on her experience and knowledge base, exactly what is happening, why it's not happening, and what should happen. And you can't do that unless, you're actually touching somebody and actually know what you're doing. And so, we often, when we talk about trainers, and so you can show someone what the correct position is supposed to be, and you can see them doing it, and you can have a perception that they're doing it correctly, and it could be all wrong because you can't see underneath their skin as to what's going on.
What's firing and what's not.
I think there's an over-cueing that goes on. I never give my patients more than 2, maximum 3 cues. I think there's an over-cueing of information, and they don't do any of it well sometimes because they're just given too much information. And so I like to pick the 2 most important things for them to remember. And I just harp on that unless I see it performed, and then I go to the next 2, whatever. But I don't give them a lot of overstimulation of cues. And I think in the fitness industry, I think it's a valuable thing to incorporate that, less is more. And, you know, I'm a strong advocate, and my patients think I'm crazy for it, but I'm this whole core activation and, you know, stimulating the core and getting it to work. There's so many different spectrum of what it really is, but the core is a stabilizer. To keep it a stabilizer, less is more. It literally has to stay on as a worker bee. And if we over contract it, we're bringing in our friends. And literally.
Yeah.
And so there is this turning off of the core as a primary stabilizer when you're activating it too strongly for the most basic things.
I like that quite a bit. All right. And then my final question is, where do you go for your personal and professional development?
Sam, you go first, and then I'll go to each other. No.
You know, Jim, to me, it's always about, you know, the communication and network and being open and always realizing that you don't know everything. And so the more interactions, you know, being part of the chamber, I get the ability to not necessarily just network with other, you know, and to be honest, it's not like I work or network with other physical therapy places to learn to make us better. What makes us better is our interactions with all of these other businesses, and then learning how to communicate what we're trying to do to them, which becomes really, really important. I mean, we stay up on the science. You know, Joanne's doing her continuing education, and, you know, we're looking as to sort of what's new and what people are doing. But the practice model of physical therapy, to a certain extent, 98% of the entire market in physical therapy are these large PT practices. You know, they have thousands of clinics across the country. They're all run the same way. What are you going to learn different from them? You don't practice that way. You know, so what's the point?
I'll say a lot of them have tons of continuing education because they have to take it for relicensing, as I do. And it becomes just, as Sam used to tell me when I first met him, like, that's great, but do you use it? And is it beneficial to you? And a lot of it, you know, you can only use so much. And my toolbox is very full, maybe on paper, but there becomes these certain tools that I'm constantly using. And so remember, I used to be in a practice where they only use one major philosophy of treatment, and I would never do that. I wasn't wired that way to do that. And you can't do it in this industry, I don't believe, with major success with everybody. Then I can't treat everybody. I can only treat a certain type of group of people. And so to me, I'm blessed because I get to analyze my patients, and that's where I learn the most. To me, that's my continuing education. I like to know why that happens. I want to know why. I want to figure out why it happens in this person and it doesn't happen in this person. And I constantly put that into my little bank so that I know. And, you know, I might say it very confidently to somebody that, hey, this is look at a patient. I treated him for 2 to 3 times. Today was another visit. He's doing great. And he's asked me the question today, which I thought was perplexing. Okay, so you really know what's going on and why I'm getting better? And I thought to myself, that's the strangest question. But what he was trying to allude to is he'd gone to 6 other therapists, okay? And what he was stating to me was they kept on trying something, it wasn't working, reiterating it, it wasn't working, reiterating it, and he got frustrated. And I'm like, I said to him, like, you're asking me if I know what I'm telling you is going on? He's like, yeah. I said, well, if you think I'm still treating to diagnose or evaluating to diagnose, yeah, this is what's going on. And I went through it all. And he's like, oh. And he was like so perplexed about that. But I kind of analyze my patients all the time, but I have the time to do that. Where the general PT practice does not have the time to do that, where they want the time, but they don't necessarily have the time because of insurance. So I'm feel extremely fortunate for that.
Okay. All right, well, guys, thanks for that. Where can people get in touch with you if they want to find out more, come in for treatment, all of that good stuff?
www.boutiquephysio.com. So you can go on there. There's an information link that you can click on to set up an appointment. All of information about myself and the company is on there. It kind of reiterates a lot of the stuff that we talk about and what I'm kind of really passionate about. It also, we do consults for patients that, remember, we're self-paced, so you're putting money into yourself. So the reason we do the consults is to really make them make that decision that they really will get something out of it. And some people want that, and some people don't. And so there's that option on there as well.
I mean, even within a self-pay practice, we still offer the complimentary consult, just because, you know, people are trying to get over that idea that we don't accept insurance as one, and two, what makes you guys so different that I want to be able, that I should be spending money outside of my insurance to do it.
Yeah,
And
because I don't
it
treat,
absolutely,
yeah, the treatment.
they inevitably, they'll
protocol.
forward.
Yeah, you get them, you let them take the puppy home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See if they like it.
That's
And
good.
then if they don't like it, then they can bring the puppy back, and nobody ever brings the puppy back.
Yeah, if you get that one, there you go.
All right, guys. Well, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it for coming on the show and sharing your knowledge with us. And I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, guys.